Hey guys, R4GE VipeRzZ here, and today I'm going to show you how you can take the heatsink off and replace the thermal paste on an EVGA 970 SSC. So to do this, you're going to need the graphics card, some thermal paste, a screwdriver with the correct bit, some paper towels, and some rubbing alcohol. Now it would also be helpful to have a pair of tweezers, just for unplugging the fans from the graphics card. So to take off the heatsink, the first thing we're going to do is turn the graphics card over, and then all we have to do is undo 4 screws to be able to take the heatsink off the GPU. So the 4 screws that we need to undo are this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw. So whilst you're undoing them, it's best that you unscrew them in a cross pattern. So you want to gradually undo each one of them in a cross pattern to reduce the amount of pressure that is applied to one area of the GPU. So I'm going to start unscrewing these screws. Right, so now I've taken these screws out of here, here, here and here. The heatsink can now be taken off the graphics card. So before we try to take the heatsink off, you do have to be careful of first the fans plug here. So that will need to be unplugged before we can fully take the heatsink off. And you also need to be wary that there is a little plastic tab here that goes into the I/O plate. That will also stop you from taking the heatsink off. So to take off the heatsink, we're going to hold the graphics card at the bottom like this, and we're going to lift it away from the bottom like so. And then we're going to place it down, and we're then going to apply a small amount of pressure to the I/O plate to get the plastic tab out. So now we've taken the heatsink off like so, we're now going to turn the card around and we're going to then unplug the fans. So once we've unplugged the fans like so, the card is now free, and as you can see, we now have the GPU and we also have the heatsink. So now we need to clean off the thermal paste first from the GPU. So to do that, we're first going to wipe the main amount off with a paper towel. And now we've cleaned the bulk of it off with a dry paper towel, we're now going to apply some rubbing alcohol onto the paper towel like so. So now we've applied a small amount onto it, we can now get the paper towel with the rubbing alcohol, and we can now clean off the rest of the thermal paste from the GPU. So now we've cleaned the bulk of the thermal paste off the GPU, we can now clean the thermal paste off of the heatsink. So just like we did before, we're going to clean the bulk of it off with a dry paper towel. So we're going to wipe it off. And then just like we did before, we're going to apply a small amount of rubbing alcohol onto the paper towel, like so. So now we're going to clean off the rest of the thermal paste. Right, so now we've cleaned the thermal paste off, we're now going to apply our new thermal paste. So we're going to get our thermal paste and we're going to apply it in a cross pattern. So we're going to get our thermal paste and we're going to do it in a cross pattern. So we're going to put some here, like so. And then we're going to put some across here, like that. And that should be enough thermal paste for the GPU. So now we've put the thermal paste on the GPU. We can now put the heatsink back on, so the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you plug the fans back into the header here, so let's do that. Right, so now the fans are plugged back in, we're just going to reseat the heatsink onto the graphics card, making sure that the plastic tab is back in the I/O plate. And then we're going to turn it over, and we're then going to put these screws back into the graphics card in a cross pattern, just like the way we did them before. And now we've replaced the thermal paste on the graphics card. So guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you another time. Bye.